everyone. It's great to be back with you. Happy spring. Happy June 1st. Happy Pride Month. So my talk today is about who are you really? And I love the music. It has really prepped us for this very conversation. So another talk title could have been News of the Week, New Thought Style, but I thought you might not come to that talk. So I am going to talk about a few things in the news. And I had a moment where I thought, what if people don't agree? And I thought, man, do we ever live in a divisive time where I second guess whether I can bring up something I saw in the news? Isn't that interesting, hey? So anyway, the first thing I wanted to bring up was at the beginning of the week, we had a visitor in Canada. We had the King who gave the throne speech. Now, I'm British, so definitely the royal family is part of my sphere, but I want to say I'm mostly indifferent. I know some people love royalty and all it stands for, and others have very strong feelings the other way. But it was a very interesting time. It was historical. We haven't had the royal leader give the throne speech in, I think it was 70 years. And a couple of things really I took note of. So the first thing was the King started his throne speech with a territorial acknowledgement. Now that is huge. The royal family are historically have set themselves apart. So if they do something, you saw the carriage he came in on, right? Like they don't look like your common person, and they don't want to. That's not their role. And yet the territorial acknowledgement he gave could have been spoken right here. It was not fancy, it was not regal, it was a territorial acknowledgement that is in acknowledgement of the traditional people of that land. That's a pretty big deal, in my opinion. To me, we've come a long way to get to this point where that happened. The other thing is that the King talked about Canada and the Canadian identity. He talked about, said things like, we are a country of bravery and sacrifice, and that's not how we're known around the world. That we're a country of kindness. So he really talked about our identity. And you could have had a drinking game out of how many times he called us a sovereign nation. And obviously that was the reason he was there. Why at this time? Why did that happen? So that's a really important thing, I think, for us as Canadians. We know we're in this sort of unusual time as a country where we're sort of under threat from one of what has been our closest allies and our close neighbors. So what it made me think about is that, there's been a real sort of claiming of our Canadian identity. I love the hat that you wear when you're out walking, and I got my own shirt, so we're going to have to walk sometime. It says, Canada's not for sale. So I think that what I took from this is that when we experience a betrayal or a loss or a threat, what it does for us and what it has done for us as Canadians is it's really made us look and say, wait a second, who are we as Canadians really? Because I have to admit that for a long time, I've just taken for granted that we're American-ish, just a little bit more polite, a little kinder, softer spoken, and we say sorry all the time, right? Like that was kind of, if I was out in the world, that was sort of what I would say about Canadians. But boy, now there's been a lot of time for us to reflect on who are we? When the rest of the world is talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, we're talking about reconciliation. That is a very unique thing to us as a country. That is one of our deeply held values. We've made some big mistakes, and we're doing some big work to now reconcile with that. That's unique to us as a nation. And what I thought about is, I think we've all had an opportunity to say, who are we really as Canadians? We are multicultural. I actually love, I'm sure this annoys some people, I love the press conferences, how they just go between English and French. I used to speak French, so it's a lovely way for me to practice, but I love that. It's cumbersome, and I'm sure the news media is like, ugh, we gotta have somebody translating, but who cares? It's who we are. We get to speak both languages, you get to ask your question in whatever language. We've done a lot around the world. We're known for peacekeeping, diplomacy. Even our economy is unique, even though we've kind of just taken for granted that we were a wagon sort of hitched to the American economy. And I think we're going to now see this change. And I think we're going to see us really claiming our identity on the world stage. So while I would never have wished for any of that threat, betrayal, or loss, I think what it's given us is an opportunity for reflection and to really get clear on who we are and what we stand for. And I think this is true for us personally. About 3 years ago, I experienced my own sort of betrayal and sense of loss. And when I look back now on this past 3 years, what I've really been doing is refining, who am I really? I got rattled, my foundation shook, and now I get to look and say, so who am I? Like, how much was I just living this, I'm this sort of middle-aged white woman, and I kind of work in sort of social justice-y areas. I'm an educator, I'm a minister, those kinds of things. That's just sort of who I am. But now I'm getting much more granular. So who am I really? Who are the groups of people I want to be around? What do I bring? I loved the song, I Am Light. That idea that we're not our stories, we are the light. How do I want to bring that light to things? So I think we have this opportunity of self-discovery when we have moments of loss and betrayal. And I think there are other things maybe that lead us into that as well. Sometimes illness and things, life changes that, come up suddenly. But it gives us really this opportunity to look again at who are we really. So in New Thought, we have principles that are very similar. So there's unity. I'm part of Centers for Spiritual Living or Science of Mind, and there are a few other teachings. But basically, we have the same 3 premises. One is that God is all there is. We can call that whatever we want. Spirit, the universe. We can call it a creative intelligence. But the idea is that there is one thing, one power, one presence that is everywhere. We are what is called a panentheistic religion. And what that means is we believe that that spirit is everywhere and inside of us. And that spirit is made manifest through us. So everything in the world is an emanation of that spirit. And that means that spirit is active in us. So we are this teeny tiny rain of light, this individualization of spirit. We also have spirit in us. And that we have this creative process, the same creative process that created the whole world we live in, is actually happening within us. So that is the ABCs of New Thought. God is all there is. It is a benevolent, good force. God is good. It is in us. We are of it, and it is in us and operating through us, and that we have this power to create the experience that we want. So when I think about this opportunity to think about who are we really, I think that's where we start. I am a little piece of God, and so are you. And we are creative powers in our experience. And once we start from that grounding, we really have a base that can't be rattled. And so I'm going to butcher this, but Derek gave me some coaching this morning. There's a sailing race that started in Nanaimo, the 14 days around the island. I don't know anything about sailing, but Derek does. So this morning I got him to give me a lesson, because I think we had the opportunity to look at all the beautiful sailboats this weekend before they left. And I think sailing is a great metaphor for who we are and how we work with the world. So if we know that you've got a sailboat and we're the sailboat, and all of it is God, the sailboat, the ocean, the wind, all of it. And so we are in the ocean, and we are trying to create our experience. We can do nothing. One of the things is, in Canada, the world can tell us who we are. You know, we can let the world tell us who we are. This is our moment of saying, oh no, we're going to tell you who we are. And I went through that experience as well. The world will tell me what it means to be a middle-aged white woman in Canada at this time in history. But I got to choose to step out of that and become clear on who I am really. So if we think about our sailboat, you know, the sail, I think, is that opportunity. You know, you can't, your sail has to be at the right angle, right? To be able to move forward, you've got to have that motion with the sail. So the sail's got to be aligned with the wind and the air, right? That's us. We need to be aligned. Have you ever done something in your life and you thought, why is this so hard and going so terribly wrong? That's because it's not in alignment. Your sail is not catching the wind and not getting that impetus of that creative power that's in us and around us to help you move. The keel, I think, is that foundation. You know, that's the thing that stops you from moving sideways. The keel is our foundation, that knowing that we are spirit. We are spirit made manifest, and we have creative power, and that so does everybody else, and that we have our unique thing to do in the world because we're a unique individualization of spirit, which is why not one of us here looks the same, has the same desires, has the same skills. We are all unique in that. Those are the foundational principles that are the keel. And then we've got the rudder. And the rudder is the thing that we get to choose our direction. So we get to align with spirit. And Ernest Holmes is the founder of Science of Mind, and he said, you know, whatever you want, that desire within us, that's part of spirit. That's our unique expression of spirit. And so long as that hurts no one and is for the good of all, it's yours to do and have and be. So that is our opportunity with the rudder, is we get to choose our experience. So I don't know if that worked as a metaphor, but it made sense to me this morning. And I see myself as that sailboat, because so often, you know, I will just leave my sail slack, I will not touch the rudder, and I just let life tell me who I am, what I'm doing, and I consume media that's like, oh, you got wrinkles, you should probably buy this cream, and, you know, I just say, oh, well, you know, you should have this much in the bank at this age, and so I carry on with my life and do those things. And we can do that, and I think people can be quite happy. But what we really have is the opportunity to get to know who we are really. And that's the unique expression of who we are. And so, you know, how do we know what's ours to do and who we are? Well, life leaves clues. Because sometimes, especially with a lot of conditioning, and the world outside, there is a lot of noise. It is loud. And what we know, and it's one of the unity principles, right, is we use our spiritual practices to turn down the volume on that noise, to be reminded that spirit is all there is, despite what we see, and that we are of it and a part of it, and that we have creative power. So we use those spiritual practices to align Our first step is to calm ourselves. Actually was listening to a podcast, and I know you guys are doing your prosperity stuff right now with the unexpected income. And this was a book by a woman named Kate Northrup on money. And she talked about, she's very New Thought. I don't know if she knows that, but she is definitely a New Thought. She's talking about this infinite source in us and that we use and we tap into it. But one of the things she talked about, which I thought was really interesting, is she said so many of us are walking around responding to trauma. We're locked in this fight or flight. We're afraid. Every time you turn on the news, it tells you to be afraid. And think of things and we are like, what about? And all of this. And so we live in this world of fear. Our nervous system is all amped up. And unfortunately, that creates more of that noise. And it creates that experience that we're no longer aligned. We're just being pushed. And we've forgotten our source, that spirit is all there is. And so I think our first thing is to do is calm our nervous system. And again, our spiritual practices, our breath is the most powerful thing we have to align with spirit. 3 really deep breaths can be transformative, can take us out of this fearful place into this place of knowing. So I think we have to first calm ourselves. We have to remind ourselves that there is spirit and absolutely nothing else. We align ourselves with it. We say, okay, I'm in the sailboat. I'm not just swimming in the ocean. I can use the wind and the current. I can use the rudder. I have the keel there to keep me steady. I use the air to propel me forward. So we align with all of that. This is not life according to Amanda Pope. This is life of Amanda as a divine being expressing spirit's longing through me. And how do I know it's spirit's longing? Because it's coming through me, which is great because each one of us has a different thing. And I think, we can learn from others. I did a wedding very recently for a couple, and they're both artists. And if you want to know people who've spent time in the who are you really, spend time with artists. Because, there's sort of the trends and fashions and things, and then artists are like, but that's not me, I'm this and those colors. And they had made their whole outfits, and the people who came were all artists as well, and they were in these very extravagant outfits and things. And it was just a beautiful reminder of what it's like to be in a world where people are working on being who they really are. So I think we can learn from others, we align ourselves, and we have to be brave in that really accepting and trusting this is spirits to express, that otherwise it wouldn't be in me wanting to come out. And then we move. Derek made a great point this morning about the rudder. The rudder does nothing unless you're moving. Your sailboat has to be moving, and then you can use the rudder. So we are meant to express and to move. And so what I thought about today, coming here, and I haven't been here for a while, is that I think that is what spiritual community is for. I think we are the place where we create a space to allow for that question. Who are you really? And I think perhaps there are some spiritual communities out there who want more conformity, but I think in the New Thought tradition, that is our one purpose, is that we show up every week after the world has said, this is who you are, you can't be that, who do you think you are, you're not good enough, blah, 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 blah. We come here and we see God expressing in each person. And people look at us and hug us and say, it's so great to see you. And they see that spirit. We recognize that in each other. And what I'm learning about myself is that's the kind of environment I love to be in. I love an environment where you get to be the most you you've ever been, and you get to be the most you, and then I celebrate that because it gives me permission to be the most me that I've ever been. So at this wedding, I'm a little bit of a fly on the wall before the ceremony starts, and I get there ridiculously early because I don't want the stress of my life of being late for a wedding. So I often just watch, people watch, and it was super interesting. And so I saw a conversation. And so obviously what I got from it is these are people who went to university together years ago, and they're seeing each other for the first time in a long time. And so one was introducing the other, was like, oh, is this Chris? Remember Chris from university? And you could see the person is like, I'm not getting it. I don't remember Chris. And then they're talking a little bit more, but you can still see them going, no, I just don't remember Chris. And then the person who introduced them says, oh, Chris was Elizabeth back in university. Oh, right. And then Chris says, of course, I forget that people don't know I transitioned. I just assume everyone knows. Oh, right. And then the other one says, oh, right. Okay, yeah, Elizabeth. And to me, I loved it. Because as I said, artists get to be who they are. So they love quirky, different, whatever, right? And I thought, how beautiful that, right now in the world, there's really this really ugly war against trans people. But in that environment, it was like, yeah, of course you are. Oh, yeah, I forgot. And it was just no big deal. And I thought, isn't that a beautiful space where you get to be who you really are? And that, I think, is what I love about Pride Month, is I love that I think the whole foundation of Pride emerged out of people really asking the question, who am I really? And a celebration of people being allowed to be who they are really, without anyone needing to be afraid of them, or what does this mean, and will society crumble? No, society's actually stronger. And who doesn't love a month that starts with rainbows and, is full of color and feather boas? This is a month to celebrate being who we truly are, to remind ourselves that in the world of new thought, that is us. We are seeing spirit in everything. We recognize spirit expressing through every person, regardless of their sexuality, their gender identity. All of that is part of the uniqueness of them. That was planted in them as spirit through them. That is creating this beautiful, colorful rainbow of the world we live in. And that is who we are really. So I want to leave you with that. And what I want to say is just check in with yourself. Where are you on that spectrum of just going through life? Life shows up, you're looking at your RSPs and da-da-da-da. Or where are you on the, no way, this is me, this is a spark in me that is calling me forward? And I think I go all the way through that spectrum. But I hope if I can ask you to do anything today, it's to invite you to think about, who am I really? Am I in the circles where I am celebrated for who I am? Do I need to strengthen relationships? Where do I maybe need to create some distance? How can I celebrate each other person and being who they are? How much am I starting to go, ooh, that feels different than what I'm used to? And where can I just go, of course it does, because that's their unique expression. So I hope you'll take that with you. Pride Month, every time you see a rainbow, I hope you will think, who am I really? And you'll celebrate that in yourself, and you'll celebrate everybody else in exploring that, because that's what we do here every week. So thank you for being here. Thank you for inviting me back. I'm delighted to be with you today.